As I said, I have opened with a bit of a rave this morning. Geez, I'll tell you what would have been nice, and someone sent me a text. Wouldn't it be great if the Waitangi Tribunal decided to subpoena Storm Wall and all the people in that flat in Nainai who know what happened around the death of Baby Roo? Wouldn't it be more useful if the Waitangi Tribunal had a look at that and went to the High Court in Wellington to try and get them to front up and tell the truth? Funny old world, isn't it? But as I said yesterday, 1:30, I go down to a press conference held by the Associate Justice Minister, Nicole McKee, from New Zealand First. She's New Zealand First or ACT? ACT. Nicole McKee, ACT or New Zealand First? Nicole McKee, ACT or ACT? Nicole, so she's the Associate Minister of Justice. And the Prime Minister, ticking things off his little plan there, Christopher Luxon, and they announced, well, basically a reboot of Three Strikes. And Three Strikes was, I guess in its basic form, a very popular policy about making people feel like they're getting tough on criminals. And we all want to be tough on criminals, don't we? It was basically if you got on your third offence for certain offences, you would basically, they'd lock you up and throw away the key and give you the maximum sentence. Most inquiry into Three Strikes suggest it wasn't very effective in actually reducing crime, but it made people feel good. So the government has put a retread, I think, on Three Strikes, and will introduce it June, I think, probably be passed by the end of July. To find out what impact it might have, what was wrong with the last scheme and whether or not those problems have been fixed, we're joined by someone who spends a bit of time with criminals in terms of working for them and defending them in our judicial system, Marie Dyhrberg from the Auckland District Law Society. In fact, she's its president. Marie, nice to talk to you again. How are you?
Thanks. I'm good, Sean. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Okay, so we've had this law before, and I think Labor repealed it. It was an ACT law to start with. What was wrong with it last time?
What it was last time is it proved what internationally those jurisdictions that had these mandatory sentences established. And those changes were made overseas. We made changes because, one, the punishment should always fit the crime, and we were getting disproportionate sentences, whereby when you look at the circumstances of an offence, you look at the offender themselves, then they either got a sentence that they would never have got had they been just judged discreetly by a judge taking all those factors. So unfortunately, harsher punishment does not ever necessarily address offending behaviour. And we know that we moved into a more rehabilitative kind of environment because we know that if you put a bracelet on somebody's ankle, send them off to drug or alcohol rehabilitation or anger management, any of those programs, we were seeing they made positive changes in their lives. And of course, what we all want is less serious crime, and it works. The programs are not available in prison. All it did was increase the prison population.
By how much?
But the percentages would have to be at least by 40%. We had people who were being imprisoned that would normally not be in prison.
But if they were bad bastards 3 times, Marie, why not throw the book at them?
Well, that's what the general attitude is for a lot of people out there, and I know that some people will be saying that, but I also come across people who are victims in crime. I come across people who are affected by crime, and the general public in New Zealand are saying, we want it to stop. We want these people not to create more victims.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there were people being caught by this legislation that are being put into prison with no prospect. They're going to come out without any great improvement in their attitude.
Happens anyway, though, doesn't it?
Well, not as much as this mandatory sentencing that takes the discretion away from a judge. Now, a judge can impose all sorts of conditions and say, look, I'm not going to sentence you. I'm going to wait until you undergo this anger management and the drug rehabilitation. You come back. It might take 6 months, 9 months. Then I'll decide if I'll sentence you. And these people make progress during this time. Their circumstances are different, and the prospects of them not reoffending are greatly enhanced. Never going to happen if you put people in prison. We all know, the police know, we know, harsh sentences do not stop crime. We all want it to stop or at least be reduced.
Well, they stop crime from the people who are inside prison. While they're in prison, Marie. You can't, no one can burgle my home when they're in chokey.
They can drug deal in prison. They can commit offences. They can extort people so that you might have somebody in prison and you're paying into a bank account.
I don't have anyone I know in prison, thank goodness. Marie, what about the new law? And they have made some changes, and there was admission yesterday from the Minister and the Prime Minister that 3 strikes last time had some flaws in it. Has anything been done to address those flaws from what you have seen?
Not that's going to be constructive. Like they have said that you have to hit the 2-year mark before you qualify for 3 strikes. Well, that's quite a low barrier for a lot of offending. Most people who come before the court are facing maximum terms of imprisonment that are beyond that. They may not get beyond that, but that's what the maximum term is. So you get certain assaults, you might get certain driving offences where there's been a death. You will get some sexual offences that take you beyond that 2-year mark, but they are the people that are more at risk of what we call a disproportionate sentence, where the punishment exceeds what really in all the circumstances fit that particular crime. So it doesn't really make a difference, and we're still going to get those inequalities. They say that the judges have some discretion so that there's exceptional circumstances, but that's rare because it means you have to step outside the norm. Most people fit the norm. Why did you commit this offence? You can look at them, but they're not exceptional. So those alleged changes aren't going to, in my view...
Well, they say it's only going to affect 90 people. Only 90 people, 90 offenders will fall under the 3 strikes law, under the new... We shall see. I don't accept that you can quantify that, and those figures, I don't know where they come from, but we are going to definitely have more people under this regime. It's not that much different from the last, that people are being put in prison. They're put in prison for a much longer time due to the 3 strikes than they normally would. That will not change. I don't care whether they say it's affecting 90 people. Maybe in the 3rd strike it might, but it's going to still affect a great number of people who would normally not be in prison either at all that long. I guess the thing is not to commit crime, Marie.
Well, let's try and help people stop committing crime by giving them realistic by all means punishment. By all means, do not take away
it's simpler than that. You just don't do criminal stuff, Marie.
Well, that's easy
no one needs. I don't need help to not be a criminal.
Yes, you might have a very different background from a lot of people I see. And I see how people get caught up in crime. I see how it can stop for them. And I wish people would listen to me. It's not that easy to say, well, I don't do it, therefore nobody else needs to. We don't have the backgrounds many people have. It would break your heart if you listened and you knew the backgrounds.